Hello,
Okay.
everybody.
We're ready to go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. The meeting is called to order at 10:03. Welcome board members and audience at home attending via the Zoom to the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board meeting. Meetings of the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board are open to the public and comply with the Bagley-Keeney Open Meeting Act. This act allows for public comment on all agenda items. Audience members may address the board following each agenda item. All speakers from the audience are limited to 3 minutes. Are there any members of the audience that require accommodations to participate in this meeting? Please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom application or send a message to Industrial Hemp if you have accommodations to participate in this meeting. Okay, roll call. We will begin by conducting roll call for board members. When called upon, please provide a brief introduction for the audience participating on this webinar. Van Butsik, Justin Eve, Lisa Herbert,
Good morning, everybody. Lisa Herbert, Sutter County Agricultural Commissioner, representing agricultural commissioners in California.
good morning, Lisa. Kevin Johnson, are you there, Kevin? Jack Norton,
Hey, Richard, I'm here. Jack Norton. I'm a hemp farmer in Alameda County, Contra Costa County, San Joaquin County.
morning, Jack. Rob Priscilla,
Good morning, I'm here, Rob Porchella, CBD finished products manufacturer and also hemp farmer in Fresno County.
thank you, Rob. Vanessa Ramirez,
Morning, Vanessa Ramirez, industrial hemp farmer in Ventura County.
thank you, Vanessa. Dave Robertson,
Here. Sorry, I keep getting blocked. It's hard to unmute and mute. I'm here.
thank you, David. Richard Soria, I'm here, retired horticulture instructor and current pest control advisor. Lucas Wilson,
Here, farmer, Butte in Sutter County.
okay, thank you, Lucas.
Richard, can we go
Welcome
back
in.
and see if Justin or Kevin, I know I saw Justin listed. Are we able to ask Justin to unmute?
Hi, Justin. I've asked you to unmute yourself. If you can just go ahead and unmute yourself. And if you're on a phone, you just need to press *6.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, this is Justin Eve with the Hemp Farmers Guild. And I'm a farmer in Sutters County. We do hemp farming, breeding, cultivation, and nursery. And we're focused here, specifically our board seat is for the Hemp Farmers Guild, which we're building a trade association for hemp farmers and manufacturers and processors here in the state of California.
well, welcome aboard, Justin. Good to have you. Each board member should have received an email with all the-
Johnson here also now.
Oh, Kevin Johnson, okay. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning.
Okay, good morning. Okay, moving on. Each board member should have received an email with all the handouts for today's meetings. Copies of the agenda and all handouts are available at the I Have Meeting Information webpage. and handouts will be brought up via the webinar as they are discussed. The topics of discussion for this meeting are brief program activities update, report on budget and registration, report on rules and regulations. Are there any requests for corrections or changes to the agenda order? As a reminder, the program asks that all board members check the current board member list posted on the Cdfa Industrial Hemp webpage for any needed corrections. During the board meeting, all board members will not be muted by the program to allow for full participation. To minimize background noise, please make sure to personally mute yourself during the meeting when you are not talking. There is one break scheduled on the agenda, and we will take a break approximately every hour as needed or requested. A quick note on public comments. We will have opportunities for public comments throughout the meeting, as well as an opportunity for general comments at the end. For comments during an agenda item or pending board motion, please keep comments pertinent to the item or motion. At the end of the meeting, we will have opportunity for additional comments both related to the meeting and for items not on the agenda. We request all individuals who would like to comment on an agenda item to use the raise hand feature in Zoom. We also request for each speaker to state their name and affiliation before commenting. Due to the large number of attendees, we will be limiting all commentators to a maximum of 3 minutes per agenda item unless there are follow-up questions from the board. We will be timing all commentators and will try to provide warning prior to the time limit ending. Thank you for your consideration as we try to provide everyone with an opportunity to comment during the proceedings. If you have questions for Cdfa regarding industrial hemp and the industrial hemp program, please direct your questions to the Cdfa staff. You may contact them by emailing or calling 916-654-0435. And then we'll go on to brief program activities updates. Now, is that you, Josh? Or Locke?
It'll be me, Richard.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Locke Van. I'm with Cdfa's Industrial Hemp Program, and I'm just here to provide a brief program activities update. So we'll go ahead and start with the current registration. As of what was entered of December 10th, 2021, we have had 267 registrants, of which 254 are growers and 13 are registered as breeders in 32 counties. We have almost 400 registered sites with a little bit over 6,000 registered acres. As for the counties with the most registrants, San Bernardino has 71 registrants, while San Diego has 33 registrants. And then counties with the most registered acres is Fresno with a little bit over 1,200 acres and San Bernardino with almost 1,200 acres. So the image on the right indicates the 32 counties that currently have valid, that has registrants. And of course, we do have a monthly registration summary that is available on our webpage that is updated. As for rulemaking update, since we last presented on rulemaking, the rulemaking documents to amend sections 4940, 4944, 4946 has been submitted to the Office of Administrative Law for their review and approval, and they have 60 working days to review it. For section 4900, which is on the registration fee, that is still under development. And then from the previous meeting, we had section 4920 and 4921, which is exempted from the rulemaking process in regards to the approved cultivars. The Industrial Hemp Advisory Board did approve of amendments in the last board meeting on the November 18th, 2021. And we're currently in the process in submitting those documents for submission. As always, a copy of our laws and regulations, the most current, is available on our webpage. And then there is a proposed regulation webpage as well on our division's webpage on the PHPPS regulations. As for other additional program activities we have, we will be advertising 2 board members vacancy at the end of this month. We did have Van Bussick, who will be resigning from the board at the end of this month, as well as a vacancy on a registered grower. So it's 1 for a registered grower and then 1 for an established agricultural research institution. As for the testing laboratories, we've received 20 laboratory applications as of December 10th, of which 20 of those laboratories have been approved. 9 are pending approval. For the 9 that are pending approval, the program has already reviewed their application. We are just waiting responses from those laboratories. We are also intending to renew some of these, the approved laboratories, as they will be expiring in the coming months. We do also intend to fill some vacant positions that we have for the program. And then we continue to collaborate with the commissioner in the administration and enforcement of this program. We will be updating the online information, especially our FAQs, forms, and templates. And then we continue to respond to public inquiries. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Locke. We'll have now a report on budget and registration.
Before we get to that, Richard, were there any questions or comments from the board?
Kevin Johnson here. I have a question on where the process is in the rulemaking for the registration fees. I guess maybe Joshua can answer that.
Sure. So we have hopefully y'all can hear me. We have a board motion from a from a previous meeting to raise fees. Cdfa has not begun the rulemaking process at this time to raise fees, as the board's motion did not meet the standards set in the law. So Cdfa is reviewing the board's motion and determining a path forward. I do not have an update as far as a timeline or any other information on that process at this time.
Kevin Johnson here. Do you know why that it didn't meet the requirements?
So just to clarify, and I know we've discussed this, hopefully, just kind of clarify and update everybody. The board's motion to set a straight line fee of $2,000 per registrant was projected to cover approximately 47% of the program costs for this program. However, we have a statutory obligation to set a fee that covers all program costs under Food and Ag Code Section 81005. So that has caused some delays in determining a path forward at this time for this program. So that's under review, but at this point, I don't have any updates as far as what the process will look like or any sort of a timeline yet. Did that answer your question, Kevin?
Yes, it did.
All right.
Do we have any more questions from the board? Okay, public comments?
Richard, I don't see any hand raises or any comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the report on
Richard,
budget.
Oh, actually, Richard, Vanessa did make a comment. She's asking what is the status on the state plan. And Vanessa, I'm going to go unmute you as well.
Thank you very much. Yes, so as part of the activities for the from the staff, does that include some getting an update on the state plan, or how are we doing with that, and how can we, the board, help you?
So I can provide a quick update on that, and the status hasn't changed since the last meeting, I don't believe. Right now, the plan to be submitted to USDA is currently routing within the department for internal approval and submission to USDA for their approval prior to moving forward with rulemaking in order to implement it. So at this time, it is still riding in the department, and there's no change yet. So that's the update at this point.
Is there any chance that we could get a briefing on the state plan? Some sort of briefing, or maybe we could form a committee around the state plan?
So just very simply, there is an existing committee that'll be talking in a few minutes about rules and regulations. The state plan is a compilation of rules and regulations. So anything on the state plan, anything that we will be implementing from a regulatory perspective would be able to be discussed as part of that that working group and that item. At this point,
So just to,
yeah, go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to want clarity. So you're saying that we can do the work around the state plan in that rules and reg committee. Is that correct?
Yeah, any changes? So the state plan is a compilation of our rules and regulations. So right now we have the regulations that we have. Again, we've been working with USDA to determine what amendments to those regulations are necessary to get federal approval. However, any additional changes or further changes in the regulations themselves or implementation of the program can be discussed by the board. And that's I believe the intent of that rules and regulations committee.
Understood. Maybe, or I guess my next question is, when's the next meeting, and can we request it in the next committee meeting for the rules and reg that the state plan, we get a briefing within that committee? And then I'd also like to ask if I could join that committee meeting, or if I could be added to the committee to the chair. If that's possible.
Yeah, so we've got that agenda item coming up. If you want to hold off and have further discussion,
okay, no problem.
That agenda item.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Were there any other questions or comments from the board? I know there were some other hands.
Okay, should I move on?
We do have a public comment.
Okay, we have a public comment.
Yeah, it's from Wayne. So Wayne, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can just unmute yourself, and you do have 3 minutes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, terrific. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for this meeting. My name is Wayne Richmond. I'm president of the California Hemp Association and California Hemp Foundation. Just wanted 2 quick questions. In addition to Mr. Van Butzik resigning, who was the other member that is either resigned? I didn't think we heard that. There was a farmer. What was the category?
I'll go ahead and take that. We still have 1 vacant position for a registered hemp grower.
Okay, and was that a previously filled vacancy someone also resigned from?
No, that was an existing vacancy. That was one of the ones that we had advertised. We did not get enough qualified applicants, and so we still have 1 vacancy that we'll be re-advertising.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. And then one other question regarding program activities. In addition to the collaboration with the county agricultural commissioners, et cetera, and online information, do you have any plans, and I'm asking this, Joshua, of your department, for outreach at the upcoming World Ag Expo in Tulare this coming February? Will there be Cdfa's presence, and will there be a hemp program presence at the show? Thank you. That's the only questions I have for now.
I'll take that. I'm not aware of anything, but that's something we can follow up on. I'm not sure.
Well, this is Jack Norton here. I'll be there, Wayne, as a private citizen, but I'll be there.
Well, Jack, I'd love to talk to you offline. We're putting together a panel for the California Report. I'm responsible for producing 4 different sessions, formal sessions for the World Ag Expo. Actually, we'd love to have maybe, I'm sorry, his last name, Mark McLaughlin, as possibly a guest, that would be wonderful as part of the California Hemp Report, and others who might be interested. So yeah, okay. Well, so if we could, get some clarity at some point, we'd be happy to collaborate or help facilitate any such activities at the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any other hands up for public comments?
No, we don't, Richard.
Okay, well, let's move on to the report on the budget and registration. Is that going to be?
Yeah, that'll be me, Richard. I'm just going to very quickly go over a couple of slides here and note some changes, and then I'll turn it over to Rob, who's been assigned to work on this for the board for any further discussion. So the first slide here is just again, this is just a minor update of what has been presented previously. So for registration fees collected to date, this is for the full scope of the program for the current fiscal year 2021-22. Which started July 1 of 2021 and ends June 30th of 2022. That's an updated year-to-date figure. Otherwise, the figures here have not changed. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide. And so again, I don't believe that many changes have been made to this slide. Staff continue to go back and assess and ensure that all payments have been processed correctly and review all of our expenditures and review all revenue to make sure it was accounted for correctly. Otherwise, I don't believe there are any really significant updates to this. I will note that the current year projection for 2021-22, the number on the previous slide was different than what you see on here for registration fee revenue. Again, this is a projection for the entire year, and the other one was year to date, so that's why the two don't match. And then we will continue to see changes to the overall expenditures for last fiscal year, this fiscal year, as they have not yet closed. Obviously, this one we're in the middle of the fiscal year. Last fiscal year still has not yet closed. So there will likely continue to be changes to the information here as we continue to go back and ensure that all expenses are accounted for correctly. So there likely will be some continued updates to this sheet as we move forward, but otherwise this is more or less the same spreadsheets that you guys have seen in the past. That's it this is the only other slide. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rob or the board for any further discussion.
Thank you guys very much for putting that together and keeping us updated with the latest information that you have. The quick assessment of things continues to look like we're fighting an uphill battle here to try and resolve our budget issues. Obviously the amount of growers are so far down that the income from registration fees is going to continue to be a shortfall as far as being able to cover the necessary budget expenditures, even with, I assume the increase in the registration fees is projected. Was that due to the increase to $2,000 per registration fee? Is that what the 660,000 reflects?
So Rob and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's just a historical projection based off of actually, I think it's based off of fiscal year 1920 participation in the program. So I think that's a historical figure moving forward. So no, that's yeah, we obviously did not have, there was a decrease in the number of registrants in last fiscal year, so that number dropped considerably. We have not adjusted any of our projections moving forward at this point.
So none of the projections that you have there were adjusted based on the increased fee. And I'm sorry, I've been busy this morning. Was it said, what was said about the registration fee, the $2,000 earlier? I missed specifically if something was not approved in regards to that.
The motion had been made, but the department has not moved forward on that motion at this time, and is looking at a path forward. And as was discussed previously, the food net CDFA to set a fee that covers all program costs. And at the
Right.
time of the motion, that fee was projected to cover approximately 47% of program costs, which does not meet the requirement in the Food and Ag Code. And so at this point, we have not begun a path forward, and I don't have any other additional updates at this time from the department.
Okay. I know we had previously discussed outside of the meeting, and I don't recall if this was brought up within the parameters of the public meeting, but having a champion that could potentially wipe our slate clean our deficit, and you know, we had discussed Senate Committee Chairperson Andrea. I still feel that my internet connection is unstable. I hope you all can hear me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's my end, Rob. We're having trouble hearing you right now. Yeah, staff, can you guys hear me okay? Is it my end that we're having issues with?
I could hear you, Josh.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Josh.
Okay.
I think the issue's on Rob's side.
All right, well, Richard, while we're waiting to see if Rob's able to resolve his audio issues,
Can you
go
hear
ahead,
me
open it.
now?
Oh, yeah, we're hearing
Yep.
you now.
I'm sorry. It rains and I seem to have internet problems here. I apologize for that. I don't know what you missed, but my quick point was, you know, trying to reassess a path forward and continuing to see if we can't have, you know, some participation from legislation to help us resolve this budget issue and sort of restructure, because again, the projections are looking dismal going forward.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
we
we
have
need to
further-
be creative.
Do you have any further discussion from the board?
Yeah, Richard, if you want to go ahead and open it up, if there's any further conversation from the board.
Right. Are there any other further discussion from the board?
I guess Jack Norton here. I'd just like to say I think I'm reiterating some of Rob's comments that the way these projections look are pretty dismal, and I think Josh had mentioned that a $2,000 fee would cover about half of the program costs, meaning that a flat fee to fulfill our obligation to fully fund the program would more appropriately be about $4,000, but that's becoming somewhat of a barrier to entry for people to try hemp farming. And I know that tiered fees were talked about before, but it looks like this is an issue we need to continue working on and either get creative or change something up. I know it's a very difficult issue to get people to agree on at the same time, though, but it's not something we can ignore.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Do we have any other discussion from the board?
That was Jack, Richard.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Jack.
Kevin Johnson here. Has there been any talk or in Cdfa of trimming the program so that it's able to pay for itself? And I guess that would be a question for Joshua.
Sure. So and I can quickly address that. The program staffing is very small for this program. Right now, we've got basically 2 full-time employees. We should have 3 full-time employees shortly to support all program activities, including management of the board, processing of any administrative, all the various administrative tasks, including the registrations and payments and contracts with the counties and things of that nature. And then the remainder, and actually over half the program, is payments to counties to conduct the registration aspects of this program. And so we have had continuous discussions with the counties regarding the activities that we are funding. However, we do have an obligation to ensure that they are funded for those activities. That has been an ongoing discussion. I know some of the board members have looked into that issue in the past as far as whether there were any opportunities for streamlining. However, overall, this program is very small. There's not, I'd say personally, I don't see a lot of room to cut. And again, even raising a flat fee up to a $2,000 level was not very favorable amongst many of the members of the board, just to cover half of the program's costs. So I know there's some concern out there amongst the members for that as well. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, we continue to look for ways to streamline, but this program there is quite a bit of work to be done out there. Obviously, the board is interested in us continuing to move forward with a number of the activities that have already been discussed. And the costs here certainly don't fully encompass all costs related to hemp cultivation in California. There are a number of other programs and another number of collaborations that go into this work, and the county agreements line item only covers a small portion of their actual costs relative to this program for other things they either bill or have to dip into county general funds for those. So again, this cost, even though it continues to move along, and it seems to be difficult to find a way to fund that via the established mechanism with registration fees. I don't see it as going down long term.
Josh, it's Rob Porcella again.
Yeah.
Can we just maybe assess this for what it is and say that the way in which it's structured for us is simply not feasible? And there will have to be a restructuring in order for this to ever work financially. I see Wayne Richmond's got his hand up, and he had proposed a tiered system, which I looked at, and I think something of that nature would probably be more effective than what we have and fair for farmers. Quite frankly, the proposal that he had, I think, was maybe too complicated, but I would not be opposed to some sort of tiered structure so that large scale farmers paid more and small scale farmers paid less. But the fact of the matter is, I think even with that type of a tiered system, it's just not feasible to pay for the program expenses via registration fees alone. I mean, I think that may be something that we're going to have to ultimately acknowledge. And again, some sort of a restructuring, looking at other programs and figuring out how to make it work differently, because from what I've seen, registration fees, paying for all the county agreements and the personnel services and the operating expenses, it's not feasible. So
Hey Rob, can I ask a quick clarifying question? So as far as restructuring, are you talking about other funding sources?
correct, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, sounds good. So I will clarify. So I mean, and we had a brief discussion and talked about this a little bit at the previous meeting. Cdfa's discretion on the use of, I apologize, my phone went off. Cdfa does not have much discretion as far as how we use, or I guess, any funds that are used by the department have to be appropriated by the legislature. And so the legislature for this program, the appropriation is the use of the establishment of a registration fee and the use of those fees to pay program costs. So any changes to the funding source would require legislative fix, which would be outside of CDFA's discretion. CDFA cannot propose a legislative fix. And because it's outside of CDFA's discretion, it's kind of outside of the board's ability to take effect as has been discussed in the past. So that's yeah, and I apologize for the distractions here. So again, we do have our own limitations, and we appreciate any efforts by industry, and we certainly appreciate the concerns that you've been expressing.
Well, and I think that's where when I bring it up, maybe this is obviously outside of the board's ability to make change, but we have a presence of industry here that we come together at these meetings, and that's kind of why I put that out, because we do have industry associations outside of this, and this kind of becomes a place for this discussion to begin. But maybe the work has to be done outside of what the board's influence is. But I think this is the place to have the discussion. This is where it starts, and then maybe we have our industry friends kind of take it from here as they're able to see the struggle within.
Well, maybe what it is too, Rob, and hopefully you guys can hear me. This is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. Yeah. Is that we've been doing research, and it seems like other programs aren't necessarily always funded on the backs of farmers through registration. And I think with the passage of AB 45, we should be able to see maybe other aspects through other parts of this program being built out where we can collect some sort of revenue. Permitting process, I think, is what, we'd all like to see at every level. So potentially maybe involving some of the other agencies to find out what other ways we could derive a revenue for this, or the department. I know we're mainly focused on farmers, but maybe the question would be, is there other places that we can derive revenue, other permits that are going to come available based on AB 45 with the new legislation that will be able to drive the expansion of this program?
Jack Norton here. Justin, I appreciate that. That was actually a question I was interested in as well. Is do our other programs, are they all funded by registration fees, or how are those other agricultural programs like the tomato board, or how are they funded?
So I'll address that very quickly, Jack. And there are a huge array of different methodologies for funding a program. We have licensing or registration fees, assessments. There are a number of different ways that a program can be funded, but they all have to be based in the authorizing statute, in the authorizing law. And so, any changes to the funding source for this program would have to be a change to the law. The revenue that's established under AB 45 has a specific appropriation from the legislature into how those funds can be used. And none of those funds are, from my knowledge, would be able to be used by CDFA for this program. That's not to say that couldn't change through legislation, and that's not to say the legislation couldn't be pursued to establish other sources of funding. Just that's where we're at with regards to this program and with regards to our existing authority.
Okay.
And then do we need to form a new committee to work on that then in budget, or where could we put some thought into that? Where could we invest the time to explore and find out how we can clean up our revenue source here, and maybe lessen the fee to the farmer and find out if there's another aspect there, or maybe we could create some sort of structure where farmers pay based on their level of participation via acreage or whatnot, like other programs have adopted through their revenue generation.
Justin, I could answer that quickly in that the budget task force only has one member right now, and
just gonna say
needs
some
another
help
member.
would be great.
Well, I don't know if that's where we would work on it or not. Maybe it would be, looking at the budget, or I'm assuming that's where we would work on looking at the revenue issues.
I had another question, Josh. I don't know if anybody has the answer to this, but while I'm looking at these numbers here, in between the 2018-19 year and the 19-20 year, registration income went up by about 3.5 times, and on the expenditures, personnel services also about tripled. County agreements went up 6 times. Now, following the next 2 years, 1920 to 2021, although registration fees are cut in half because farmers are cut way back this year, a lot less people are farming. Personnel services climbed a little bit. It seems like that might be a slow moving metric, hiring and firing people. I could see that, but the
So
county
Rob, let me
didn't
address
drop.
something real quick for you, just so you've got some clarification here, which is that the first full year of registration would be fiscal year 1920. We started hemp registration in April of 2019, so you would be capturing about 2.5 months of
Yeah.
revenue and expenditures there. And then full registration in a full year, the first full year would be 2019-20.
Okay, well, that's a great point. So between 1920 and 2021, although registrations dropped in half, personnel services and county agreements did not change that drastically. And my question would be, do we know what drives the cost of county agreements? Is county agreements related most to acreage or number of registrations or number of varieties, number of tests that need to happen due to number of varieties? Is there any clear indication of what really drives that number, the county agreements dollar figure? My point is, it's probably highly correlated to something like pre-harvest tests. And if we knew that pre-harvest tests were the driver of expenditures, then perhaps they should be tied to the drivers of revenue.
So the county revenue, and I know we've got Lisa Herbert is the commissioner representative and can correct me if I'm wrong or clarify anything. The county agreements do not cover testing costs, sampling and testing costs. Those are direct billed to the registrants. So those are their costs relative to registration, to getting the growers registered and doing kind of that front end work, as well as also covering costs related to other costs that they cannot charge a fee for. So enforcement or other activities that are not related to registration where they cannot charge a fee. And so that's where those costs lie. They did go down somewhat from fiscal year 1920 to fiscal year 2021. However, they did not drop considerably. And again, when you spread out that dollar amount over 58 counties, it's going to get pretty small. So I'm not sure really, exactly how much those costs are going to drop as you drop the number of registrants. But Lisa, and if we've got any other commissioners on the line or staff, if you want to provide any clarification, please feel free.
Yeah, this is Lisa Herbert. You are correct. So we do have and can ask our Board of Supervisors to create fees to cover costs that we are not otherwise getting in contractual agreements with Cdfa. I do want to note, and I have noted before, that even though the county agreement number is as high as it is on this screen, counties do not typically collect the full dollar amount from Cdfa for those activities. So that is really a placeholder number. It is not an accurate, exact revenue distribution to counties.
And Lisa, or to the board or to staff, does anybody believe there's work to be done around the county contracts? I've heard, there's a lot of pain points around actually returning revenue back to the county. Maybe that'd be open discussion or something we could add to a committee conversation about how to clean up the county contracts and make sure the counties are getting taken care of and returning the revenues that are justified through these county contracts. And then the second part of that would be, what is the status of the county contracts right now?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that for staff. So I don't have updated figures as far as the payments that Lisa was referring to. Right now, staff are in the process of working with the counties to go back and ensure that the last fiscal year that everything is correctly accounted for. I know they found a couple of missed invoices during the transition, and so they're making sure that everything is fully accounted for and that all of the contracts are up to date. since I know there were some issues in ensuring that everything is up to date and correct, and that we can make all the necessary payments that have been outlined on these sheets. So those numbers will be changing as we move forward to hit actual figures. As Lisa was mentioning, there were counties that spent below the contracted amount that needs to get taken into account here. So those numbers will be adjusted. That's something that staff are actively working on. I don't know that there's anything from the board at this point until staff have gone through and made sure that we're fully cleaned up on the last fiscal year and making sure that everything is wrapped up. But they're actively working on that with the commissioners. I appreciate all the commissioners' help with that.
And so, quick pointed question: is there currently a contract in place between the county commissioners and the state for this program? And if so, can the board or in a committee review that contract and make sure that the counties are getting the just revenue that they need to cover their costs, so we're not leaving our county commissioners and agencies shorthanded?
So I'll quickly address that. So anytime CDFA provides funding to another agency or another entity, there is some type of agreement in place. So yes, we do have an agreement with every single county that we make payments to outline what the terms of that agreement are. As far as reviewing the agreement and the scope of work, I'll have to talk to staff about what that would look like as far as incorporating the board into it. I don't necessarily see major issues there, but that's something we're going to have to think about, work with commissioners on what that process would look like. We certainly appreciate the concerns in ensuring the counties are being reimbursed for their activities. So that's something that we can look into.
And Josh, would it be something possible where we could stay in one of the committees, maybe it's the budget committee, where we could actually set forth an agenda or set a meeting to specifically discuss those county contracts? Or that's something you're saying you have to get back to us, or that is something that we could direct within that committee?
Let me get back to you on that. I can reach out, and whoever's working with this group, we can talk offline and determine what can and can't be provided and what forums we can do that in. Yeah, we'll have to look into it, because I don't have an answer for you offhand right now.
No worries. And we do have a budget. Go ahead, Rob. My apologies.
Yeah, Justin, that's okay. I just wanted to go back to your previous question in regards to the budget and deficit committee, and me being the sole member. I would welcome any other members to volunteer to join me on the committee. It would be any additional help would be greatly appreciated.
Well, Rob, I'd be happy to join you. I think Lisa would be better suited for that because she understands the county contracts. But if Rob, if you are looking for more help, then maybe I could participate in that if no other board committees would be better suited than myself.
Well, I'm for having you join the committee. That would be, like I said, it would be appreciated if you're willing to do so. I don't want to twist anybody's arm to join the task force, but any volunteers would be welcomed.
My question to staff would be, is there a limitation to how many committees board members can be on or participate in?
No, there are no limitations. It would be just, we do want to ensure that the board is able to continue to be active and move forward. So obviously we don't want to overextend anyone beyond their capabilities or their time. But no, there's no limitations.
Then, I mean, Rob, if you want me to work with you, unless Lisa or Jack or anybody else wants to jump at that chance of working on the budget and getting those county contracts and everything understood and dialed in, I would be happy to participate in that committee if I believe that would take the board or the chairman to motion to apply me to that board. Maybe staff could direct us on how to make that possible. I mean, I prefer someone else that maybe is better suited for that. I did stop going to college over accounting. So, but if you guys want me to do it, I'm happy to participate.
It would just be an appointment by the chair. The chair can appoint and can assign someone.
Well, if you two would like,
Yeah, if there's no other volunteers, then if Richard is willing to do so, I would just ask that he go ahead and appoint you to that.
yeah. And that was Jack, right?
No, Justin. Justin Eve.
Justin, okay. Thank you. Don't have your voice down yet. Yeah, Justin, if you'd like to be on the committee with Rob, that's fine with me.
So I think, do we need a motion or can you just appoint me? How does that work, Steph?
Yeah, no, Richard would just assign you to work on that. And so it sounds like, Richard, you're assigning Justin to join Rob in working on this task force for budgets and registration fees.
Right, Josh. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And Richard, Rob, and Justin, I respectfully decline being on the committee, but if there are any questions or any assistance you need on county contracts, please let me know and I will assist you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to ensure that we don't, have any bag leaking issues, we can also work with Lisa to determine, even though Lisa would not be able to be part of those conversations, we could put you in touch with other commissioners that would be able to do so. There are 56 to choose from. So Lisa, we can work together and make sure that Rob and Justin have any information that they might need.
I appreciate the willingness to participate. And just to clarify, we would just have to notice the agenda or notice the meeting if we wanted to participate with Lisa in that conversation. Is that correct?
Correct. It would have to be a publicly noticed meeting. And just to point out for Richard, it looked like David Robinson had his hand up a moment ago. I don't know if he had any comments or was unable to unmute.
Yeah, Josh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I apologize if it's a repeat question, if I missed it. And I think, Josh, the question is to you and the state. At what point, because this budget thing's been a problem since day one. So at what point does the state look at this and go, hey, legislature, you've got to change this because we're never going to get to a balanced budget? It keeps getting thrown kind of in this forum to have a constant discussion on it, but it's really a state issue and a state legislature issue because of the way it was created. It's never going to be a balanced budget based off of fees.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, David. And unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that. I think that would be, that's more of an executive decision. So I don't know. There's no set standard or anything that we would be working off of here. I don't know at what point any of those conversations would occur, but obviously, I mean, the numbers that you're looking at there tell a pretty clear story. So, but no, I don't have an answer for exactly when those types of conversations would occur, what they would look like.
Sure, I appreciate that, and obviously on the law enforcement piece of it, this isn't an impact for us, and so I don't chime in a lot on this. But for the farmers that are on this, and the growers and the producers that are trying to really make hemp viable in California, I just don't know that this advisory board should continue to create committees and set up committees to try to pass on more fees when the state is the one that has this in their breadbasket to fix, not us. And so we're never going to be able to raise fees enough to make it viable.
Dave, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. I really appreciate you making that statement. And I couldn't agree with you more. We as an organization can agree with you more. And what we'd like to see some legislative action within the new bill as we restructure it, that we can kind of subside that debt and properly structure it so it can continue to be funded. Maybe we could continue offline in that conversation about how we think we can approach that.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Mm-hmm.
David, are you unmuting again?
Yeah, I was trying to just say, yeah, Justin, I'd be happy to do that. Just reach out and let me know.
Okay. And just a reminder, if we can just ensure that we're not running into any bag leaking open meeting act violations. If there are any questions or concerns or any conversations that need to occur, if we need to pass along information to specific organizations, if you can just keep CDFA in the loop, and we can help direct those and try to help mitigate any potential issues there.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you. And then Richard, I don't know if there's any further conversation for the board. I know Wayne's had his hand up for a while for public comments. If you want to open it up, if there's any last comments from the board before we go to the public.
Okay, anybody else from the board? Okay, we'll open up to the public for comments.
So Wayne, I asked for you to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Wayne.
Well, thank you. Very good discussion. And lots of valid points. I'm not going to belabor the obvious. This is a ship about to sink under the financial weight. My background, aside from being president of the CHA, is former business development executive with Apple Computer and serial entrepreneur. And the reason I and our group suggested a tiered program, which was mentioned earlier, is because it was fair both from an social equity standpoint, as well as made some kind of financial sense out of this. But clearly the market registration numbers versus what the market is doing clearly has no impact on this department in ways that it needs to or possibly can't change. That remains to be seen. To the comments about the county contracts, simply ask staff. I have the 1,400 pages in PDFs that the staff sent me earlier in the year, which is quite a volume to go through, and hence, we really haven't completed that, but it is available, and would suggest that Justin, you'd absolutely join, because I know you, join the budget and registration committee with Rob, because you guys bring a set of fresh eyes to all of this and a perspective from the farmer. This is no way going to create and foster an industry. So my discussions with our members and our coalition members, which does include Justin's organization, and I would suggest, is Mr. Cleeden on this call today? I know he has experience in this area. I believe he's a new board member. Oh, high energetics. What needs to happen is we need to go back to Senator Wilk or Assemblyperson Aguilar-Curry, who have been previous sponsors of other hemp bills, and we need to sponsor a bill, and I say we, meaning either CHA or CHA as part of a coalition, perhaps in conjunction with support from the Sheriff's Association, as well as the CACASA, the Ag Commissioners Organization, in proposing some tweaking of the program. So a new plan on how the department should run. We know there's lots of redundancies, and then put that forth in a legislative sponsored package on their desk and let's get it through the legislature. We have plenty of money to wipe this clean and start afresh, but we need to present a joint plan. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any other public comments?
We do have Rachel who has raised her hand. Rachel, I'm going to unmute you. Rachel,
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Rachel Kubiak with the Department of Pesticide Regulation. I oversee kind of all things cannabis and hemp, and I have more of a comment followed by a question. My comment is I am seeking information from the hemp industry, I guess particularly growers, but I guess it could expand beyond that. My comment or my concern is that with the passage of AB 45 and the fact that hemp is now going to be tested for potentially all of the same contaminants that cannabis is tested for, including pesticides, I'm interested in seeking feedback on what impact, if any, is there on the grower side with respect to pesticide products and the products being used, and if there is a desire for communication with us and or guidance that we need to help put out or get information out to folks on the differences between, can you use a pesticide under the Food and Agriculture Law, and the potential testing, which is a completely different setup on the cannabis side of things. I guess I have a lot of concerns about the impact of that bill, and if there's any input that the growers of the community can provide back to me at the Department of Pesticide, I'm seeking that information. And so follow that, I guess, is the question, which is, you know, are there concerns on your side as growers? Has this question come up? Information that's, because it's completely separate from my understanding from the whole track and trace program under cannabis, but the requirements are going to be the same. So I'm just seeking information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, hey, Rachel, and just for the board, so I know this is not a question on the current agenda item for the budget and registration fees, but Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, I think it might be a good idea, since this would be outside of the board's general topic of discussion anyway, maybe you could put your contact information in the chat, or we can distribute it to the board members for them to provide you feedback directly on your question. That might be the best way to get the information from them, if that sounds acceptable to you. I don't know if you're able to unmute again.
Sorry about that. My apologies. I didn't expect the public comments section to come up until this afternoon, so I'm currently driving, and I won't be able to put my information into the chat for probably 15 minutes. If the meeting is still ongoing, I'd be happy to do that. But otherwise, if you could assist in that, I would be greatly appreciative.
No worries. Yeah, this is not general public comments. This is public comments regarding this agenda item, but we will have a section later on this probably like.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My apologies.
No worries. All right, thank you. We'll try to call on you later on during the meeting, and if you're not available, we'll make sure to get the information out. Thank you, Rachel.
Are there any more public comments?
Don't see any hand raises or any written comments, Richard.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to reporting on rules and regulations. And Jack and Rob will do the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
So guys, we have, I guess I've got good news and bad news. We were both tasked with, from the last meeting, coming up with some proposed language changes, where last meeting we had talked about specific areas, priorities for amending existing language. And the bad news is we're still working on that due to unforeseen reasons. We'll need a little more time. So by the January meeting, we'll be able to have actual language changes for discussion. We had 2 hours allotted today because I think it took us about 2 hours in the last meeting to have that initial discussion. And our reasoning was that it'll probably take that long when we have the language changes ready as well to discuss those before we're able to attempt to take any kind of action on them. So what I figure we can do with this time right now, the good news is we won't need anywhere near 2 hours to complete this report, is to recap the areas of concern that we had found in the last meeting and solicit any discussion from the board or public on these areas or additional areas while we're researching possible language to amend with. So to recap, the primary areas we talked about in the last meeting were Article 2, Section 4940A, the 11-day regulatory sampling window, and Section B, the possibility of consolidating the sample analysis request form and the pre-harvest report. Then in Section 4942 of Article 2, we had talked about the sample preparation method, and basically including material other than flowers as being a big discrepancy between USDA and Cdfa language. Then also in Article 3, we did comparison between the USDA's disposal language versus California's destruction language, which ties into Section 4950.1, non-compliant versus voluntary destruction, because this will be a big area. I believe we talked about how other jurisdictions are handling this kind of issue. And on top of that, also are looking into ways that we could define what remediation is, because there's a possibility of it being a revenue stream for farmers by changing the idea around destruction to remediation, and what remediation procedures might be. Now that's the basics of what we are looking into, the basis. It's not a complete exhaustive list. There were some comments from the board as well on other areas to research. But that's what we're working on, and it'll take us till January, but we'll have some language proposals and a more substantive discussion to be had in January on the issues. So if anyone from the board would like to comment on any of those issues or any other issues that might be pertinent to rules and regulations, I'd be happy to hear them, and then after that from the public.
And Jack, real quick, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. Last time in this conversation, we had talked about the definition around harvest. Just listening to what you just said, I don't believe that was addressed in that. Had you guys looked into the definition around harvest?
Yeah, thank you. That was well, that's why I said the list I gave wasn't complete, because I knew there was more issues that we had talked about during the meeting that I didn't have on my list handy. But I appreciate that. That's definitely part of the discussion.
My only other question is, when is the next board meeting? And I didn't get the comment on the last one, but to Wayne Richmond as well, and I believe just maybe staff could clarify that we can get members of the public to participate, or of other agencies and departments to participate in the committees, even though they're not the heading of it from the board members, that actually people can participate in those committees and be assigned to that outside of the board.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take your question there, Justin. So if we have people that are assigned to work on an issue on behalf of the board and come back to report, they would be considered members of that committee. And so we would be applying any public noticing requirements or anything like that. If we have just 1 or 2 members that are assigned to investigate a topic, they can interview other people and obviously get information from the department to investigate an issue and then come back and report to the board. They just have to report back to the board, what they looked at, who they talked to, things like that. But if the board is interested, or if the chair is interested in assigning specific people to a committee that is going to discuss and come back to the board with a group recommendation from that committee, then we would need to notice if there were going to be more than 2 people on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. If there are particular experts that you suggest we engage with about this, I'd be happy to hear. And please reach out to me, let me know.
I will definitely. Thank you, Jack.
Did Vanessa have her hand raised? I thought I saw that.
Yes, thank you. A question that I have, I would like to address, will be all the documentation that we need to do for clones. Right now, there is a little bit of ambiguity with my county on regards of clones. Do I do a planting report for clones? We don't, we sell the clones, so we don't have to do any. Should I do the testing? Should I do the pre-harvest report and the harvest report, even though I don't flower that? I do see a waste of money having to do testing, being that I flower it. So what, we haven't seen anything that gets addressed on those, on all of the regulations in regards of clones.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll definitely look into that with Rob and see if we can perhaps bring any kind of report back at the next meeting on that issue.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion from the board?
Kevin here. I like a lot of the language in the federal final rules pertaining to a lot of these issues about rules and regulations, and I'm pretty sure Jack's read a lot of that, so that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, we're definitely trying to compare CDFA to USDA and see where the USDA language is better and gives us more room.
Do we have any further discussion from the board? Well, it sounds like you're doing a good job there, Jack. Got a lot of issues there.
Yeah, we do have a lot of issues, and rather than bringing back a partial list, I figure we'll take one more period to get things dialed in, to have something more substantive to share with you all.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Let's open it then for public comments. Do we have any hands up?
Richard, we don't have any hand raises or any public comments, written comments.
Okay. Well, does anybody want to take a break, or should we just continue?
I think the meeting's almost wrapped up, given that we didn't need to take too much time on rules and regulations. I'd be happy to just continue.
Okay. Well, let's open for public comments on matters not on the agenda.
Okay. Let's see. I have an issue I'd like to bring up. Richard,
Jack, you can go ahead and open it up to the public, and if there's any public comments from outside the board, and then we'll go ahead and go to any additional conversation by the board for potential discussion at the next board meeting, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you.
So Richard, we did have a public comment submitted to us from Grace Dunn. Her question is, while the industrial hemp program is being developed, may wholesalers, distributors, and retailers of finished industrial hemp products distribute and sell those products in California? If so, are there any rules that they should follow, and when will those be announced? She also asked, what is the regulatory liability for non-compliance during this time, whether it's criminal or civil, and will the final regulations cover matters such as label requirements, advertising, and packaging?
Yeah, and Locke, just to clarify, so you clarified with Grace, and all of her comments are regarding the pending regulations being developed by the Department of Public Health with regards to AB 45.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Did that answer her question?
Yeah, so she had some questions regarding Assembly Bill 45 and the Department of Public Health, and so CDFA does not have any information regarding her questions, but we will
Right.
include her public comments in the minutes. Unless
Okay,
it's-
her second
Question to staff. Is this okay if the board speaks now, or is this still in public comment, or?
At this point, we're in public comment. If you've got specific questions, I don't know if Grace is on and able to answer any questions, if the board has any clarifying questions for her. If not, it's probably best to go ahead and hold off and we can have the conversation during the next agenda item.
Well, just specific to that, I was just wondering if the department had a contact person at CDPH that they're working with to implement AB 45, and if so, who that is, and if they could divulge that information to the board so we could reach out and contact them.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask staff to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we have a specific contact of the Department of Public Health at this point. I know they do have a general inbox that I believe they have a general inbox that they've put into place that we can, I believe we have that information on our website, but if not, we can make sure that gets out to people.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I was recently trying to reach out to them and was kind of going in circles trying to find someone to speak to. I did end up in a mailbox where I didn't leave a message because I find those rarely get returned, but good question.
I believe they have a similar setup to us, which is there's a general inbox and then staff will respond as quickly as they can, just to make sure you're hitting everybody. I believe Grace is on the line and has her hand raised. We're going to unmute her.
Yes, Grace, I have unmuted you. If you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for everyone's time. And I realize my questions are a bit beyond your scope, but I was trying to, and I think you did just answer this question to see if you had a contact information for someone. We're just trying to figure out how to comply while the industrial hemp compliance program is being implemented. And we just haven't been able to reach anyone from the Department of Public Health or the Food and Drug Branch. I have emailed that email address, but I get the same kind of automated response every time. So I was just trying to see if you guys had a phone number or a specific person I could reach out to, but it sounds like you do not.
And Grace, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. Could you tell us your official title or what capacity or company you work for?
Sure, I'm an attorney at a firm in Indianapolis, Ice Miller, and we represent a distributor of finished hemp products. And so there's no cultivation involved, which I realize is what you guys focus on. But we're just trying to make sure we understand how to comply while that program is being implemented.
Understood. Grace, if you could send your contact information to the board in the comment section, maybe one of us will reach out and see how we could work together to get that information to you and then potentially collaborate. I'm not sure if you're interested in working with us directly as part of any of these committees, but if you could send your contact information along, we'll reach out to you once we get that information and make sure that you stay abreast of that information.
Definitely. Thank you. And do I just put that in the chat or is there somewhere else I should submit that information?
Probably best in the chat. I think you can email someone directly if you want some of our email addresses or public information on the I have list, or you could just put it in the chat and then the whole board would get it.
Okay, I'll just put it in the chat. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for participating.
So Richard, we've got Wayne's got his hand up and then Rachel has her hand up again. If you want to go ahead and go to Wayne, I think he was next.
Okay.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Wayne.
Okay, great. Gosh, I'm sorry, it's a little distracting here. There's so many issues and so many things going on. With regard to the discussion, I believe subject matter experts are allowed to be invited in to the different committees. Is that correct, Josh?
So just to clarify, so we've got some people that have been assigned to work on specific issues, some task forces that have assignments. They are able to speak to subject matter experts and other people who are not on the board to get information that they would be able to report back to the board at the next meeting where that's on the agenda. If we have people that are officially assigned to work on a group with the board, with board members as part of a committee, then that would be that is possible, but that would have to be publicly noticed and handled as a public meeting.
Okay, great. So that means informally, yes, they don't need permission. Formally, they need to be appointed and noticed for meetings.
Right.
Right. Okay, so my question here is AB 45 clearly, you know, is the new legislation we have to deal with. I sat in on the Department of Cannabis Control's meeting earlier in the week. My question is, does the CDFA or the Industrial Hemp Program intend to relegate its powers and control of cannabis, in this case, industrial hemp, to the new Department of Cannabis Control? And I'll stop with that question for now.
Can you clarify your question, Wayne?
My question is this, that finished hemp products will be basically approved for channel distribution through the Department of Cannabis Control to be sold in the dispensary systems that have been set up in the retail cannabis stores. To the end, obviously, you know, they have different requirements for testing, et cetera, but my question is that oftentimes I have seen in the past, and I'm old enough to say I'm 68 and I've seen an awful lot of things in my years, but the fact that this department is upside down financially potentially gives people the idea, potentially on the cannabis side, that since they're awash in money, they were just granted $100 million by the legislature to clean up some of the regulatory issues that they've had with licensings, et cetera. That notwithstanding, it seems that they are a dedicated department formally, as opposed to a bureau. And as such, they seem to be looking to acquire more territory, if you will. And so I'm just wondering, at what point will CDFA either give up or fight to keep industrial hemp on the industrial commodity crop as a federally approved crop per the 2018 Farm Bill, as marijuana is not? And even though it's cannabis, you can, I hope, understand the confusion here. So that's the gist of my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm not familiar with any plan changes. You know, obviously we're going to abide by California law, and right now California law under the Food and Ag Code has requirements for cultivation for industrial hemp that this program is responsible for administering. I'm not aware of any changes or any plan changes to how that's currently being administered. And on the finished product side, with AB 45 falling to the Department of Public Health, unfortunately, I don't have any additional information and cannot speak to what's occurring there. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly if there's anything else there that you're asking, but I'm not aware of any changes or any plan changes at this point.
And Wayne, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. Maybe you could consider some of the committees or some of the issues, and maybe we could get you assigned on some of these issues so we could dig into it together.
And I might be able to shed some light on what Wayne was saying regarding my understanding. The ag production part of hemp, that's in CDFA, and AB 45 doesn't change that. The test, I think, new AB 45 testing is within CDPH authority. That the only time DCC, on my understanding, comes into play is if hemp is going into cannabis products. And if that might change if we have dual use or integration, but that's how it is to my understanding.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
And then Rachel has her hand up.
Hi, thanks. And my apologies again for speaking out of turn earlier. I had moved from my house to my car and misunderstood the public comment section. I guess I would just reiterate the question I had for the growers is there discussion, or is there, I guess, concerns or anything of the sort with respect to, are you hearing anything from growers about concerns over pesticides being applied to hemp under the food and agriculture laws, and now having to contend with the testing under Department of Public Health. So that was really more, I'm just seeking input from the grower side of things on whether there's discussion going on about that, whether it's a concern, whether I need to be more engaged on this subject as the department representative. So any kind of feedback on that. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jack Norton here, Rachel. I don't know that I can give useful. I've thought about some of these issues before. The things that are tested for in cannabis, none of those are labeled for use in hemp. So there's no issue of, to my understanding, there's no issue of somebody using those products on hemp as a registered pesticide, but then being worried about failing those cannabis tests, that cannabis testing level. But there's definitely an issue. I feel there's an issue with pesticide in hemp where we simply don't have a lot of options for pest control. There's very little that is labeled for us. And so while, for example, a lot of processing tomato farmers, they might put down carbaryl bait when they plant to keep small bugs like earwigs and darkling beetles from eating at little baby plants while they're young and not very strong. And if you're an organic tomato farmer, you'd use a different product. You might use spinosad bait, but they're effectively the same things. These like wheat granules covered in some kind of poison that the bugs will be attracted to and eat, and it'll protect your crop. In hemp right now, there's neither of those products are labeled for hemp use. So there's no, I think both of those might be tested in the cannabis testing, but my point being, we don't have a lot of options to protect ourselves from issues like that. We'd have to attempt some kind of cultural controls and then just deal with plant loss as well.
Yeah, so two things on that come to my mind. One is that there are a number of products. So there are a number of products that are allowable to be used on cannabis, even though they're not technically labeled for use on cannabis. So the guidance and criteria for hemp, and really this pertains to any crop in California. If a product is tolerance exempt, meaning the US EPA has said doesn't matter what level of residue of that pesticide remains on the commodity, it's considered safe. So as long as a product is tolerance exempt and a label is broad enough that there's technically no use in conflict, which is the technical term, if you use it on that crop, then it can in essence be legally used. And that is how the cannabis industry in essence has dealt with pest control, because there are no products registered for use on cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
However, so that's one thing, is that even though we've got products registered for hemp in California, there are products that can still be used on hemp outside of that aren't considered illegal. The second point is the cannabis industry dealt with this in terms of using, like I said, products like spinosad, products that technically are not allowed to be used, are still being found on the testing side of things. So I guess the point being is not everyone is technically in compliance with Food and Agriculture Code in terms of what you technically can and can't use. The testing system is not set up based on, for cannabis, what is allowable and not allowable under our laws and regs. It's meant to capture what's being used regardless of whether it's legal or not. So we've had to do a lot of education, primarily through the agricultural commissioner's offices, on the subject of what can and can't be used, which may be now more applicable to the hemp industry. And again, I'm certainly not projecting that there's, the hemp users are using products they're not allowed to use, but I'm pretty confident is a sector of the growers that are probably using things because there is no testing, or wasn't historically testing. Now there is going to be testing. And one product that comes to mind that is legal to use under our laws and regs, under this sort of exemption, are the pyrethroid products. They're technically, if it's broad enough, they're exempt from tolerance when you apply them. That doesn't, however, mean that the product's going to pass testing, because the testing requirements under the Department of Cannabis Control for pyrethroids it's a completely separate set of regulation. And I guess I just want to make sure that the hemp industry understands that if, as the law is written, the testing for the hemp products are going to be the same for hemp as they are for cannabis, that they need to be aware of these nuances. And if we need to have or provide guidance in any way, that I certainly would be willing to help in that arena. So I appreciate your feedback.
Great.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Yeah.
Rachel, I know Justin Eve has put his contact information in the chat for you. If you are interested in reaching out to him, I know he's part of the Hemp Farmers Guild and may have some resources. And Rachel, it might be a good idea if we can touch base, or you can touch base with staff as well. We might be able to see if there's some other ways, either through the board or other methods of getting outreach, and we can coordinate on that and provide other assistance. But Rachel's information was put in the chat earlier, so anyone can feel free to reach out to her directly. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Do we have any other public comments?
Richard, I don't see any hand raises or any written comments.
Okay, now we're coming down to the next meeting. Before we pick a date, I'd just like to say it's good to have meetings. I mean, there's a lot going on, but every time we have a meeting with the small staff, they have to work on the meetings and not do their other duties. And every time we have a meeting, we go deeper in debt too. I'm not saying not to have meetings. I just wanted to put that out. So let's hear from the board when they'd like to have their next meeting.
I'd like to have a meeting in January. I felt like the monthly meetings we've been making good progress, and there's a lot to be done.
I agree with you. There's a lot to be done.
Well, this is Vanessa. Yes, are we going to try to meet in person next month or in February? Because we still need to. Excuse me?
Hello, I heard a voice.
Go ahead, Vanessa. I think that was somebody who wasn't muted.
Oh, yeah. So I was just trying to see, we're gonna try to meet in person because we need, want to meet, to be able to meet each other face to face, and also we are supposed to be doing the voting on the new positions. So is that something that we can make it in person, Josh, or would it be until February?
At this point, so I'll answer it, and I know Emma, you've got your hand raised, so we'll get to you too. And Lisa mentioned in the chat. So right now, the board had previously discussed quarterly meetings. The next quarterly meeting would be on January 13th. As far as in-person meetings, at this point, I don't think Cdfa can accommodate that for a couple of reasons. And part of that is the COVID testing requirements and the continuing to shifting requirements around COVID. So right now, we are not having any public meetings in our building. And if we are going to continue to have this kind of online interface as well, the only option that we have at this point would be to do a meeting in our building. So right now, like as of today, we can't accommodate that yet. The room that we would normally use for a public meeting due to the number of people present is currently a COVID testing site. So it is otherwise occupied. We will and can continue to explore other meeting options. In-person meetings are certainly a lot more work and obviously more cost. Justin's asking if we can have a meeting outside of CDFA. That is an option, and we have had board meetings for other boards outside of CDFA. The issue with that is going to be the ability to also accommodate online participation. I know in the past we have live streamed all the meetings. Right now we are doing all the meetings incorporating Zoom in order to ensure that CDFA has the proper controls over that. We'll have to explore what other options are there. Because Justin is asking what other locations have worked in the past. We have not done Zoom meetings outside of CDFA in any of my programs. And all of our other boards, for the most part right now, I believe are all just currently meeting via Zoom or another online interface. So right now, the vast majority of them are still not meeting in person. And again, right now, we cannot have outside people coming into CDFA facilities at this point. We have utilized other facilities like county agricultural commissioners' offices and things of that nature. That is a possibility in the future, but I'm not sure what that's going to look like. So we would have to investigate further. I appreciate that the board, I know a lot of our boards and a lot of our general participants would like to be able to meet in person and figure out what that looks like. So that's something that we can continue to look like, but at this point, I can't say if or when an in-person meeting is going to be possible.
Any other comments from the board?
Yes, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could do our own outside research, find out what could be possible, and work with the department to find a meeting location that we can do in person and still provide the Zoom for the people. I know Lisa's on this call, so maybe, we could have a meeting there. I'm not sure if they have the capabilities of being able to give CDFA all the control that they need so they can get that information to the public. But I guess my question is to staff, can we do that research, and can you guys potentially do the research to find out what other potential meeting locations are that would work and have the digital capabilities needed? And then the question would be to Lisa, if her facilities could potentially do that, if we could get an answer either now or, if we could direct staff to find out and get back to us, and potentially in February, maybe, if not January, have an in-person meeting.
No, staff have some
That would be
thoughts on
nice.
this as
Yeah,
well.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Kevin here. I'd really like to see us do the January 13th Zoom meeting still. I think there's a lot to take care of on the language that Jack's going to propose on the rules and regulations. So I'd rather prefer to the Zoom. My county right now is just coming off of a big spike in COVID cases, and we're starting to go up. And I'm not really willing to travel at this point until things kind of settle down.
I think we'd still be able to do the Zoom meetings for the people that didn't want to attend. So it could be a mix. Maybe the staff could answer this question. Can we do a mix of in-person and Zoom for the people that don't want to or are unable to make an in-person meeting?
And I know staff are on and have some comments here as well. It is possible to do a mixed meeting. It does have its own difficulties. I will also note that we are anticipating some changes to the existing rules for these virtual meetings. Right now we're operating under an executive order that I believe is expiring at the end of January. So I'm not sure exactly what public meetings are going to look like going into next year. There could be some additional changes as well that we'll have to take into consideration. I mean, yes, theoretically it is possible. Obviously it has its own complications. And again, I'm not aware of any other boards that are currently doing a mixed meeting or a non-virtual meeting at this point at CDFA. And that's something we can investigate further. But I know staff, if anybody's online and has some additional comments, I'll go ahead and let them pitch in here.
Hi, this is Kapua Kakuboku. So I just wanted to comment about the monthly meetings, and I do appreciate that you guys, there is a lot going on with the board currently. But also for the staff part of it, it does put a lot of pressure on us too as well, because we have to also not only get the board, but our own work done. And I'm just asking if the board would consider potentially pushing this out at least one more month. So just till February to try to get the meeting. That gives Jack and his team, so the committees there, enough time to be able to meet with outside subject matter experts, as well as for us to be able to develop better reporting for you. And that's just what I just wanted to put that out there as a suggestion. And also really quick, oh, sorry, I just had one more thing about the meetings and meeting in person as well. The other thing is that so facilitating meetings outside in person does take a little bit as well. It's a little bit more effort, and it also, there's a cost involved potentially. So I just wanted to make sure that the members are aware of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapua.
Appreciate your thoughts there. And again, that's Kapua is busy. She's the one who does most of the work for the meeting. She's also the one who's going back and trying to make sure all of those county invoices are processed correctly, and trying to get updated budget figures for the board and some of these other, a lot of other administrative items that are ongoing. So appreciate your thoughts there.
Yeah, this is Vanessa, and I really appreciate what the staff is saying. I've been there. I know trying to do everything is really hard. Just also, I think from the board perspective is how can we get things done, right? How can we, it just seems to me, I joined the board in 2020 and we're still discussing we're exactly at the same point as when I joined the board. Like I haven't really seen any, we have not really been able to accomplish much. And I know it's not your fault. We just need to try to figure out how can we be more efficient and effective. I think from the board perspective is that if we meet once a month, then we don't put anything on the back burner, right? We keep going. So we need to find a happy medium here, or something that works for everyone. But I wouldn't want to go into February, March, June and start discussing the budget, discussing the fees, and not being able to move anything forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And I would, this is Justin with the Hemp Farmers Guild. I would support Vanessa in that, stating that we would like to continue pushing forward. And to Kapua, we really appreciate all the efforts. And maybe it's something that, I don't know if we could formulate a committee or have more direct conversation with you about what the workload looks like, and then see if maybe we could work as a team to create some more efficiencies, understanding exactly what, what's been put on your plate to get done. But, I do believe that we'd like to push forward in a regular frequency to continue to address these issues. And if maybe there would be some transparency around workloads from the staff of what it is that they're tasked with, maybe we could work to take some of those tasks off their plate, or look at, ways to create some sort of efficiency there within how the department or program is being ran, to make it feel like you guys aren't being overburdened with work from the board.
So
maybe that'd be an offline discussion or a secondary meeting.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm sure we can discuss more as part of the task force. I know past budget task force members have discussed workload and what the staff currently do, and have presented that, or presented versions of that. I will say it's not a efficiency issue, it's a workload issue. If the board is interested in continuing to meet monthly, a board that meets monthly at CDFA would normally have a full-time staff member just working on board meetings. Again, not only are we trying to get caught up on a number of internal issues, we have not presented minutes to this board, and I'm not even sure how long. And again, that's just trying to make sure the bare minimum workload is getting done. Again, if the board is interested in continuing to meet very frequently, CDFA is going to have to increase staffing and increase cost in order to be able to accommodate that. Because again, for boards that do meet that frequently, which we do have some boards that meet very frequently, they have full-time staff members that is all that they work on is the board and the board meetings, and ensuring that all of the various components of the board meetings, from the public participation aspects to security to making sure that we're doing all of our postings and all the other work that's necessary to get board members on and off, all of that needs to get done. As you know, Justin, just having gone through it, there are quite a few things just getting a new board member into place. So if that's something the board feels like they're going to continue to do, that's something we're going to need to take into consideration when looking at budgeting.
It makes complete sense. Is there a way to take a look at the workload of the staff? You know, I mean, because we're spending, you know, $400,000+ on staffing. I believe 4 people. I thought they were full time, or I understand they're full time, but not full time to board meetings. So I don't know if there's a way that we could get that information about, you know, what those workloads look like, specific to, you know, what they're tasked with. I see the organizational chart, but it doesn't necessarily give job description. And so my request to staff is, can we get job descriptions for the people that are working full time for the program? And then maybe we could have a better understanding of what they're doing and work towards encouraging and getting CDFA to hire more people if needed, if things aren't able to get done in a timely fashion based on the workloads.
Yeah, and I'll say, Justin, so I know that information was presented to board members previously who are working on this issue. I don't believe any of them are on the board anymore, so we've had some turnover, but Michelle had previously put together that information for the board. Staff can correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's something that if you want to investigate further as part of your working with Rob, we can provide that information again.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen that before.
Just a reminder that that's, you know, again, the people that are providing that information are the same people that we're talking about their workload. So again, it's just ensuring that we're meeting the board's taking into consideration what are the board's priorities here.
It sounds like Rob, it sounds like you could provide Justin with those previous materials. Those
were provided at previous meetings, so we should have access to that. And I mean, the only thing we would need to do is sort of determine if there's been any major changes to it, but I do remember seeing that previously.
Jack Norton here. I'd just like to say I echo Vanessa and Justin's desire to have frequent monthly meetings. I'm sure it's a burden on all of us, although the industry is so dynamic right now. It's in its formative stages. Things are changing every month. Actually, you know, the part of this item number is potential agenda items for next meeting, and so I think it's the appropriate place to bring up. I've noticed over time, and I've noticed some counties have been responding to concerns they are sensing around hemp cultivation in a reactive fashion with restrictive ordinances. And I'd like to have a discussion about how we can address any special issues before this reactionary regulation at the local level starts to domino. And specifically, if you guys are unaware, there's counties like Contra Costa who have banned nursery operations and put in a CUP process for hemp cultivation. And then most recently, Santa Barbara has proposed a cultivation ordinance that would let the local authorities come in and test anytime they want, force you to have a bond for the cost of destruction. And the commissioner or the sheriff can come in at any time, conduct their own test with no testing methodology listed. And if you fail that test, your crop is destroyed. And so I think farmers know that's pretty much a carte blanche to destroy your crop. So these things are happening, and they can domino. This effect can domino all over the counties, and something we need to get ahead of. If I have a copy of the Santa Barbara ordinance, I'm sure anybody can get a hold of it if they go to the Board of Supervisors and look at their last meeting. I think it's probably available for download there. If there's any way that I can provide it to anyone, I'm happy to as well. But this is, I think,
Jack,
this is a big issue that's coming up. Yeah, Justin.
I was just gonna say, Jack, if you could send it to the department, to staff, and then they could distribute it to us, or at least send the link and say, hey, you know, Jack
Thank you.
brought up and say,
Yeah,
or
I knew
even
there
just
was a
send the
proper
link
way.
in the meeting notes. Either way, I think that would be great to look at. And it is an unfortunate situation that these unjust ordinances are being passed throughout the counties. I believe what would really be the work is potentially engaging. I mean, I know Lisa's involved with CACASA, maybe getting, and they have regular meetings, CACASA does, so maybe someone from IHAB getting involved with CACASA and listening to the commissioners in CACASA to see where the pain points are there and why these issues are being dealt with at a county level instead of a statewide unilateral decision. Maybe that would be the directive of further engagement with CACASA or a member of CACASA, or us being engaged, you know, with some of their regular meetings, and maybe, you know, Lisa or someone, we would have a contact for them to work on those issues to avoid these ordinances causing an unfair burden to the hemp farmers, as we are a legal agriculture commodity.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. That sounds like a great idea. So I knew there was a proper way to do that. So I will send a copy of the ordinance to staff for requesting that they disseminate it with the board. It does sound like what you're proposing would require taking action, sending somebody to CACASA. That sounds like a great idea. So I think that means that this might need to be an agenda item on the next meeting, so we could take action on it.
Lisa, you're the commissioner representative. Do you want to address the conversation here in a path forward for the board?
Yes. Hi, Lisa Herbert. I'm a little bit confused on what the request is. Just for your information, CACASA is in regular contact with Cdfa Industrial Hemp Program about all things of issue with industrial hemp in California. So we are actively working with Josh Kress and his team, as well as Mark McLaughlin, on a number of factors that are affecting counties, including illegal operations on many avenues: code enforcement, cannabis disguised as hemp, et cetera, et cetera. So Industrial Hemp Program is well aware of all of the issues at the local level that CACASA is facing. But if there's something more that you need, I can address that.
So Lisa, they wanted to discuss some of the local ordinances that have been put into place in some of these counties and the impacts there. I don't know if you're familiar or if there's anything we can speak to on that.
Yeah, I've reviewed a number of ordinances, but you have to remember that each local jurisdiction can do and create whatever ordinance they want with their own legal counsel, their county council. So you would directly have to go to each ag commissioner that you maybe have questions with on how they addressed that ordinance. So that ag commissioner is getting direction from their board of supervisors and from their legal counsel on what direction that they want and how they want land use or other things to look like in their own specific county, including fees. So you would have to direct it directly to that ag commissioner. It's not something that an organization as a whole has the information for you.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any other comments from the board?
Could we add this to the agenda for next meeting?
Well,
Richard?
let's first let's pick a date for our next meeting, then we'll go over the agenda.
Okay.
It sounds like the majority of the board would like to meet monthly. Is that what I hear?
I believe so. If we could take a vote if you want to.
Oh, we don't need a vote. Well, let's pick a date then in January.
Previously, the board had discussed meeting the second week of January. However, considering the holidays are coming up and we're meeting today, making sure that Jack and Rob have time to prepare, as well as staff have time to prepare, pushing the meeting back into later January at the very least might be beneficial to have a more productive meeting when the board comes back around.
Okay. Here, let's get a calendar. I don't have a calendar for next year. So if we meet the third Thursday in January,
That would be the
That would
20th.
be January 20th.
January 20th. Okay, I guess our next meeting then will be on January 20th. Now let's discuss agenda items for the next board meeting. I've heard a few already.
Is the rest of the board, is that the opinion of the rest of the board as well for January 20th? Be good to hear from everybody. Again, we don't want to, also don't want to put the work in to schedule a board meeting and then not have a quorum present. So it'd be good to hear from the majority of the board.
Kevin, yes.
Rob, yes.
Okay, we'll go down the list here. Just say yes or nay. Justin, are you available?
Yes.
Yes. Lisa, would you be available?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, would you be available?
Yes.
Jack, would you be available?
Yes.
Rob, would you be available? Okay. Vanessa,
Yes.
would you? Dave Robinson, would you be
Yes.
available?
Yes.
Okay. I would be available. Lucas, would you be available?
Yes.
Okay, we'll definitely have a quorum for the next meeting. That is good. So let's go over the agenda then for the next meeting. I know we're going to have Jack and Rob, you're going to be on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll be
according
prepared.
to rules and regs. Okay. What else would you like on the agenda?
Kevin here. I'd really like to see the revised fee increase taken up again by this new board. I know it's just kind of in a holding pattern, but it's kind of like a elephant in the room. If all of a sudden it comes into place, some of the board members might feel like they didn't have a say on it.
Rob and
Okay.
Justin, that would kind of fall within the area that you've already been assigned. Is that something you would want to work on and report out at the next meeting?
Sorry, what was the
The fees.
well, yeah, we can look at that.
That'd be great.
And as far as the rules and regs, sorry, back to the rules and regs real quick. The state plan, we're going to need to have some, I think, discussion prior to that meeting. And, the answers that we were kind of provided on the state plan as far as today, we definitely need to probe into that a little bit more, as it seems to be just sort of sitting around doing nothing. So I'm anxious to delve into that a little more before the next meeting. So I'd like that, Jack, to be a part of our rules and regs responsibilities.
Okay. Could you repeat that, Rob? I'm sorry.
The state plan.
Uh-huh.
And, we keep hearing that it's just was awaiting a signature, awaiting review. And that was at the last meeting, and it seems to be in the same stagnant place as it was before. So I'm anxious to try to delve into what's the holdup there, as it's become a major inhibitor to growers that are looking for funding and are unable to obtain it due to the fact that there's no approval yet on it.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. I every time we ask Josh about it, it's not at a place to share with us at that point. So if we keep asking, it'll be ready to share. It's one of these days.
Is there any other?
Can we just have a briefing? Can we just say at the next rules and reg meeting that we have a briefing on the state plan?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And have an update?
That sounds good.
Okay, do we have anything else for the
Well,
discussion?
to the agenda item I was interested in, I don't know if we talked about it, but, and how it would be phrased, but I guess it would be a discussion about proposed ordinances and existing ordinances on the local level, and whether there's any action that we as a board would want to take in regards to this. Something pretty open-ended like that.
Local ordinance discussion.
And Josh, real quick, could you tell me who I should email this Santa Barbara ordinance to so that it could be disseminated to the board properly?
Oh, go ahead and just send the information and the link to either me or Kapua or any of us, and we can distribute any kind of publicly available information in advance in kind of as to the board can prepare for the next meeting. Although I'm guessing it can probably be searched for as well. But yeah, we can disseminate that to the board.
Okay.
And then Jack, we'll probably want to touch base with you offline to get more clarity on exactly what you're looking for this agenda item and who would be able to participate and address it. And just kind of confirm as far as what the discussion would entail and where it fits within the board's obligations.
Okay.
I'm guessing most of the ordinances that you're talking about are probably code enforcement. It's probably outside of this program, but that doesn't preclude the board from discussing it. But I want to be clear as far as what it is you want to talk about and what the concerns are, and then we can see if we can connect up anybody else who can actually better address the concerns for you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we could talk about the specifics of, for example, the Santa Barbara ordinance, where they're proposing that you have a destruction bond and that the sheriffs can come and test at any notice with a undefined testing procedure. And if you fail that, if you test over 0.3 or higher, that they can destroy your crop.
Yeah, we can touch base offline and discuss the details of what the agenda item would be.
Okay.
So that way we've got clarity on what you want to lead the discussion on for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And is everybody clear on what Rachel talked about? I was just wondering, we at a board meeting a while ago, we had somebody come from the Department of Pesticides, and they told us what pesticides we can use. And I guess we don't need any discussion on that. Okay.
Yeah, Rachel was the one who had talked to the board previously.
Yeah, she did a good job. So any other agenda items?
I have a question. I'm wondering if the board would feel like it would be important to have a legislative task force to report back to the board about, current legislation such as AB 45 or other legislation that might affect the program or the hemp farmers.
What do you say on that, Josh?
I don't have any concerns with that. I mean, I think to a certain extent it falls within rules and regs, but if the board feels like it's a different topic and you want to assign people to, and again, kind of investigate and report back to the board for further discussion, that's fine. Again, just noting the statutory limitations here as far as the board's responsibility is with regards to Cdfa's administration of the Food and Ag Code. I know there are a number of other legislative concerns out there, and I'm sure the members will want to keep up on that. I don't have a problem with that if there are some members or a member that wants to stay up to speed and report back to the board. Again, there may be some limitations on what action the board can take, but as far as having an ongoing standing assignment with regards to legislation is probably fine.
I think that's a great idea because that's a whole nother animal that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I will just a reminder. So again, the board is advisory to CDFA. The board is not advisory to the legislature, so the board cannot make recommendations directly to the legislature. So just keeping that on the everyone's mind as they're having these discussions.
The thing I was thinking about it, it might be beneficial for gathering information if there's an actual task force to reach out to the different legislative bodies or California Department of Public Health if we have a representative seeking information from the board.
Do you have any
volunteering for that task force?
I would be interested in being involved in it.
Okay, and excuse me, but who was talking?
I'm sorry, this is Kevin.
Okay, Kevin. So you'd like to be on what would we call it? Legislative
task force.
Okay. Okay.
So Richard, if you want to assign Kevin with working on that, Kevin will touch base offline and discuss what it is that you would like to do as far as working on that and discuss any potential limitations there. Again, we just want to make sure we're not overstepping the statutory bounds here and making sure that we're providing you with some clear information. So yeah, if Richard, if you're assigning Kevin to that, Kevin will go ahead and touch base offline after the meeting and kind of soon and discuss that further about what that role would look like and what we can help you with.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, you're ahead of the legislative task force. Thank you. Do we have anything else for the agenda for our January 20th meeting? Okay, well, I guess then we'll be adjourned at 12:10. And everybody have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, everybody. Have a happy holidays.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.